My name is Andy Beach. I'm a technical evangelist with Microsoft, and today I'm going to be talking about developing universal Windows applications for Xbox and beyond. Now, they made me put Xbox in there first because they said that's all you guys were going to care about. I want to believe that you are interested in a little more than Xbox, but you guys can tell me, and we'll probably literally have time for all of you to individually tell me what you think about that. I am highly interruptible, and this is going to be interactive given how few of us there are here, so please do, if there's a question, shout it out. Don't bother waiting. I think I'll make sure that I say it again so that everybody can hear it, but we will have plenty of time to cover off what I want to talk about today and answer any questions that you have. So the agenda for today is I'm going to introduce you to something called the Universal Windows Platform. You may have also heard it referred to over the last few months by Microsoft as the Universal Application Platform. They had a slight rebranding. Somebody in marketing needed to justify their existence, and we had a rebranding exercise. We're going to talk about the Universal Application Template that Microsoft is making available this summer to get you jump-started on creating your applications. We're going to talk about because I am a video nerd, that's why we're here at Streaming Media. We're going to talk about some of the advanced video information that's available starting in Windows 10 as well. And then I've got some call to actions at the end and a couple of references for those of you who are interested. Before I jump into it, who here is an actual developer? Who actually codes and creates applications? So I knew my people were going to be in the room. Are we Android, iOS? Which platforms? Shout out. You don't have to raise hands. All? Yeah? Windows 2? Linux? Did I hear Linux? Was that? No? What'd you say, Windows? Oh, bless you. You get $5 when I'm done. So who here has looked into the Windows 10 preview already? Who's checked this out? All right, good. We got a handful there. So as you know, as some of you know, with Windows 10, the premise from the beginning has been that it's a single operating system that runs across multiple platforms. Now, in the past, we've talked about platforms as being sort of the three silos: desktop, phone, and Xbox. And those were three unique operating systems that you had to support if you wanted applications across all of them. All of them had different certification processes, different design processes, different development platforms that you were running on. With Windows 10, we've reorganized all of that into a single operating system. If you write the application once, it will deploy on all of our devices and all of our platforms. That ranges everything from Internet of Things Raspberry Pi devices all the way up to Surface Hub and HoloLens devices. So everything in between is encapsulated by that. The differences become just hooks that within the application that call for specific for different specific devices and different UI controls for each of those platforms. So it's a single code base running across all of those devices. We call that today the Universal Windows Platform. Again, it was referred to prior to build as Universal Application Platform, so you may hear both for a while. Or because Microsoft loves acronyms, you'll also hear it referred to as UWP. So UWP and the Universal Windows Platform are the same thing. What we have, though, because we want to help people get jump-started with this and understand what's here, what I'm going to be talking about today is a media sample template that is being made available. There's an early version of it now. It's not actually been published yet because they're doing some cleanup work, but it'll be on MSDN in the next few weeks, and I can point you towards where that will be published when it's ready. So I wanted to walk through what that is and what the benefits of using it to get started on that is. For those developers that are in the room and are wondering if you haven't investigated this, unlike previous platform differences that you've had, we're supporting all languages more or less on the platforms. It's not just C# and XAML. We actually also support HTML5 and JavaScript. When we create the templates that we give out to you, we're actually producing them both in XAML and WinJS. So you'll have samples for both depending on how you're already working. You're not going to necessarily have to go learn a new language to be on the platform. The whole reason for that is to really just make it easier for you to get started. It's the jump start And it's designed for not just the developers to go look at and work with, it's created for your designers as well to go look at it. So I wanted to start by sort of taking a look at what's included in the template and in the sample that you'll have available. There are 5 primary patterns or displays that are initially made available. There's a hub design, a hamburger design, pivots, master's detail, and tabs. So depending on how your app already exists and how it's organized, we have a way for you to immediately get started with what you're doing. Because we're really focused on media apps, I'm going to focus today on the hub design because it lends itself most to displaying media and media details. And we're going to go through that through the sample and look at some of the UI pieces that are there. This is the primary look for the hub in a vertical mode. So if I were looking at it on a tablet turned vertically or a phone or some other device, this is what I'm looking at. It's a very flexible control. It's that grid-like style of content that's flowing. It can move both horizontally and vertically with panning. So effectively you have infinite amounts of data that are available to look at. You've got 4 primary pages within it that are available. We have a home, we have a gallery, we've got a details page, and we have a media transport control. So within these 4, you can effectively design pretty much any media experience that you're looking for. Within the controls, we've got a variety of, within the sample, there are approximately 12 different controls that are available. The hub view, list view, split panes, a push button, the media transport control, grid view, scroll control, combo box, flip view, text box, ratings, and back button. And we'll be looking at these as we go through. I just want to make sure we call them out. And again, just to reiterate, this is a single sample, or this application. If you just take even the sample and just publish it, you'll be able to immediately display it on any of these devices, and it already has the hooks to render it on any of these displays. And depending on the device that it comes back to, it's just going to render the proper resolution and orientation for display and give you the right access to controls. So it'll know whether there's a game controller or whether there's a hardware button because it's a phone, or you have a full keyboard and mouse configuration. So within the home page, up in the corner is the split view. Next come the various lists, so the ability to organize all of your content and display your media. The flip view, this is where I would tap an individual piece, and rather than jumping to it immediately, I sort of expand out like a mini details page to be able to show information. Inline MTC, inline media transport control, for short clips or small previews without switching from the hub page. You can actually start playing back and rendering small clips of video. So if you wanted to do a trailer inline, you'd be able to do that type of information. This is what the gallery view would look like across those multiple platforms as well. This is sort of the let me see everything option. So there's 2 fundamental views that we talk about here. There's the grid view, which I think is pretty obvious. And then we've got the combo box. Let me back that one up. The combo box would be where I could select different, so I could drill down into particular types of content if I wanted to filter by category or genre or however you organize the media that you're producing. And then this is a details page. So now I've clicked through to an individual piece of content or a particular movie that I want to watch. I've got a combination of text, maybe I've got ratings, other information that's there, maybe the ability to share it out with others. All of that would live on this details page. And those tools look like this. Obviously, we have the ratings highlighted, the ability to render text across the images, push buttons. This would be how I engage it with other things, whether it's share it, email it, whatnot. The combo box, again, a way of contextually pulling up other controls that aren't on screen, pulling back in that a horizontal list view as well from the home page, and vertical information. So if I need scrolling things like credits or other longer details. The last page we move to is the media transport controls. And so this is actually playing back a video within your application. We're doing all of this already. So if you're starting with whether you're starting with the sample or you're starting from scratch, you've got the built-in the transport control with all of the buttons that are going to be there. We're going to talk a little bit more as I get further down into it. We'll talk about things like closed captions that are also natively supported, and the closed caption buttons also will render here automatically if you have closed captioning. But let's look at sort of the details of what this page has. So there's the single line look. So if you just want a very slim view, if you've got a smaller screen and you want to take up a lot of real estate, but you want to be able to sort of show progress of where you are, and a play button on the other end to give you access. But if you're on a larger screen, you can also do a double line view. This is where you basically do the progress line above it, and then you've got more controls below it. So play, pause, fast forward, closed captions, other contextual info that needs to be displayed. All of that's possible through here. And then there's also the ability to do time scrubbing. So you can use your mouse, touch it with your finger, use a gesture control, grab the cursor that's on screen that indicates where you are, move it back and forth through the timeline to move to a particular piece of, to a particular point in time that you want to view. And then this is what the buttons render like in a double view mode. And then one last piece is once a piece of content is ended, you do have the ability to also, with the sample, there's a page already designed to do post-roll. So you can apply contextual content here, or you can curate additional content that you want to drive the viewer to, so that you leave them effectively wanting more with your media experience. So those are sort of all the individual pieces that go into a media app. And again, that can be designed across all of the Windows platforms. And it really comes down to how you want to customize it. Even if your business isn't in the media, I mean, obviously, we're thinking of it mostly focused on media. I'm assuming everybody here is focused on media applications. The sample doesn't have to just be focused and limited to that. The same sample works to create an interactive marketplace. You can use it for educational material and content as well, personal websites, community and sharing websites, a wide range of things. So it's really about where and how you want to use it, and all about customizing it. And again, this is not, for those of you who've designed for Windows in the past, you know that there's usually been, particularly for things like Xbox, there have been fairly strenuous design regulations that were out there. A lot of that had to do with limitations that the platform may have for what it can do. Particularly in the Xbox 360 days, we were creating a media experience on hardware that was already 5 to 6 years old at the time, so there were some limitations in place. Here, you're much more wide open with what you want to do. So while this is our guidance and this is a design that we're giving you to get you started, you can take your existing applications, you can take your existing web experience, and you can move it pretty easily into a Windows 10 environment. Let's see. So I feel like I've covered the this part of it fairly well in terms of it being a single binary across the device. Again, our focus has been to make sure that we're covering both C#, XAML experiences and JavaScript HTML5. So depending on, you know, I think with those two, we've got most people covered. You can also use C++ within it as well if you're using that for development. So whatever you're comfortable with in terms of native code, you're going to be able to write that and launch it on all of our platforms. What it comes down to in terms of the what I mentioned, what you're really doing is sort of decoupling the app experience from the OS, meaning that when you write this single code base, you're going to use different hooks for the APIs that are called on each of our pieces of hardware. So if you definitely wanted to support a phone, you can put in a call that says to check for hardware back buttons, as an example. And if there is a hardware back button, then it's not going to try and render one on screen for you. If it tries to do a check and there is no hardware back button, then then you have the option to put a virtual one up on the screen as part of the display. But we don't want to waste display space if that's there. Likewise with the media controls, if you're going to be designing for the Xbox, we want to make sure that we have the hooks in there to talk to the game controller as a point and typing device. So all of that is built in at an OS level. You don't have to worry about doing it. You just have to call the right API to make sure that exists. And again, that's all in the documentation that's being made available with the sample. Now, since it is a streaming show as well, I wanted to make sure I threw in some of the video details. There's actually also a long list of audio changes that are out there. I don't know if anybody's working on like a streaming radio app or is focused more on audio than video. If they are, just grab me after and I'll talk you through some of the changes that got made there. But for the purposes of this, I just focused on the video details. In terms of what's supported natively in Windows 10, out of the box, there's decode support for 1080p, both VOD and linear streaming. H.264 and VC1 are supported natively. The audio formats are WMA, HE, AAC, MPEG-1, and MPEG-3. The streaming containers are Dash, HLS, and Progressive. You can put others in there, which would require just custom extensions. So if there was something that's in there that's not supported, say you had a custom wrapper that you wanted or even a custom codec you wanted, it's just a matter of putting SDK that you've either licensed or built yourself to do that decode. Smooth streaming is in there at an SDK level, and it's on my next slide, so I'll sort of jump to that one in a second. But out of the box natively, these are the pieces that are supported. The DRM that's natively supported is PlayReady, and again, you can do custom DRM. It's just a matter of having an SDK. There are a number of a number of DRM clients working on builds now that will be supported in this, but again, you can also write your own extensions to support things. And then there's HDCP output protection as well for those of you who need to support that for your studio-based content. Any questions around the support in terms of audio and video before I jump to the smooth streaming? Closed captions is on my next slide too, I believe. Oh, actually it has its own slide. It'll be the very next one, so we'll jump to that one. So the real focus in Windows 10, and I would encourage you, there's a list of slides at the end, but I actually swiped these from a guy named Dave Mabane, who is the program manager for audio and video in Windows 10. He did a great talk at Windows 10 where he goes into detail around the advanced audio and video capabilities. All the build videos, build was 2 weeks ago in San Francisco. All those videos are available for free online. And I have a URL here at the end that I can point you to for more info on those. The big push, though, from Dave's group is for HLS and Dash moving forward. We see those as what all of our customers are asking for. So natively, both of those are supported. Smooth streaming is supported from an SDK standpoint, so they're updating the Windows 10. They're updating the smooth streaming SDK now to Windows 10, and it'll be available for Windows 10 launch as well. So you would just add that SDK if you want to have smooth streaming support. If Dave gets enough feedback that they need native support within the Windows 10 environment for smooth, they're happy to add it as well. They just haven't. It's just more work that needs to be done, and it would be done later. So far, to be honest, we haven't seen that hard of a demand for it. I think everybody's been happy as long as we have the SDK there. They're fine integrating that to get the support they want. There's also a number of things, though. As you're customizing your app, you'll be able to do things like set the starting bit rate, limit down by device or by profile the bit rates that are available within it. So you're not sending out 4K streams to phones. They can't play it back. And then you can override or modify specific requests. All of that can be done as you're building the app. So there's logic that can be built in around it. Closed captioning is going to be supported by default. So all apps should just natively meet FCC requirements. The support includes 608, 608 in a 708 container, TTML, SRT, the WebVTT. I think that kind of covers. Is there one that's missing there? I feel like everyone. Okay, I got one thumbs up. That's all that counts. I'm good with that one. There will be certain configurations. Now there will for sure be some, and I still have these questions out for the guys. I'm sure there's going to be some limited support or some documentation that'll have to be handled at a code level if you're doing things like live content that also has 708 closed captioning and is DRM'd, because that invariably creates problems because the headers are encrypted and the headers where the start of the closed captioning is. So there will probably be some workaround in code that has to be done, but just know that natively out of the box, every solution that we can make work by laws of man and physics will work. So I have whipped right through this because there's a lot of information out there, but I wanted to just highlight the sort of the big portions of what we had. The goal really is for you to be able to build app experiences across all of the platforms. I would highly encourage those of you who didn't make it to Build and haven't checked out the conference yet. All the videos are up for free. They're all there. I checked last night. They've all been posted already. Some of them do include the PowerPoint slides that were presented as well. But at minimum, you'll be able to get access to all the content and the original speakers that were there. So you can find that at buildwindows.com. The samples will be published on MSDN this summer. We're looking at a late summer launch with Windows, I believe. So sometime in June or July, you'll get samples that are sort of all cleaned up from Build and start getting published. A few of them are actually already there. But I know that the Windows sample is still sort of in process of edits and being reviewed. If you want more information on the HLS and Dash support that's coming, there's a blog post up on it, and I've got a shortened URL there that'll get you to it. Likewise, if you want more information on the streaming adaptive APIs that are available, that's already been published as well, and that's at the shortened URL you see at the bottom. And now would be a super good time to answer any questions that you have about what we're talking about. Unfortunately, I will freely admit, by the way, I was going to open up Visual Studio today and actually deploy an app for you. Unfortunately, my laptop completely cratered on a preview build of Windows 10 Tuesday morning as I was getting to the conference. And despite my best efforts to get it rebuilt, I'm now having to do the entire demo from my backup Surface. So unfortunately, I don't have the demo, which is why I'm sort of whipping through this faster, but I don't know how helpful that would have been either to get into some of that. But I am happy to answer questions around any of the different 10 platforms. Yes, sir?
So you mentioned that single binary for all the platforms. That's not the world today.
Right.
So what's changing to get it there? Specifically, I'm thinking about the Xbox platform.
Sure. So they're moving. So today the Xbox runs on its own operating system, and at some time in the undisclosed future, your Xbox that you have in your house will get an update, and that update will move it to the same Windows 10 that your laptop and your Surface and your other devices run. So
Is that the 360 and the one?
just the one. 360 will continue on. It's effectively at end of life. I mean, it's still there. We still sell them. People still launch. We've launched probably 65 or 75 global apps this year on it. So it's still viable, but it's effectively, because the hardware is where it is, it's as far as you can take it. Yes.
So if we wanted to develop an AV app in Windows, right now we have to do a whole bunch of different files, but you're saying Windows 10, but not really, we can't start developing that until June, July.
You can actually start developing it right now, so for everything but Xbox. So in other words, if you go to preview.windows.com, you can get both the Windows 10 free preview that's available, the technical preview, and the 2015 Visual Studio build that will allow you to deploy applications. So you can deploy apps today to a Windows 10 phone or a Windows 10 desktop. There's just no store to publish it to because Windows 10 hasn't launched. But you can start developing today so that as soon as it launches, you're in the market and ready to go. The one caveat is that Xbox is on a separate timeline, and it will be added to the Windows 10 family later. And I know that they just had some, I believe actually this morning they're having some reviews of the timelines with developers, and that'll be available hopefully later this week. Yes?
Is it easier to get apps in Xbox One store than it was in the 360 store?
Yeah. So I mean, once Xbox moves to Windows 10, it is just like publishing to Windows Store or Windows Phone. It's effectively one store, and all you're doing is selecting through both the manifest and then when you publish the app, which platforms you want to support. So we don't make you support them all. You don't have to publish an app that hits all of them. You can selectively say, I just want a phone or I just want an Xbox. But when you go in and develop the app, both within the manifest you create and then within the publishing of it, you're going to be able to publish it to all of those platforms. And yeah, the questions back there?
Well, maybe you can just kind of expand on this.
Mhm.
The whole publishing process, the XCRs, TCRs, the whole ecosystem of app deployment,
Yep, it all changes for, are you focused on Xbox particularly or just
all three.
all of them? Yeah, so there will be requirements that are specific to each of the platforms, but it's going to be more of a unified list. If you are also publishing here, make sure you do this, make sure you do this. But the goal has been with each successive new platform to minimize the number of those requirements that we have. So if you've been with us from 360 days, the 360 original requirements list was something like 280 requirements, which they've whittled down to over 3 or 4 years down to about 150 or 170. When they launched Xbox One, the goal was to have it be 100 or less. They hit about 115, 120, and they're now down to just under 100. And I believe the goal is similar with Windows 10. The requirements that would be specific to any given platform are going to be as minimal as possible. And those are really just there to make sure that your users don't have bad user experiences. They're not to block you from doing something per se.
Yeah, what about just the process? How many submissions are you going to have to do?
It's going to be much more like and so it's still being worked out for the Xbox, but in terms of phone and desktop, it would be identical to what you see today for submitting to the store. So effectively, it's just an automatic. You self-submit. The goal is that it's also exactly that for Xbox as well. Again, it's going to be a single storefront. You're not going to submit to 3 different portals for the same app. You're going to submit it to one place, and you're just going to choose the platforms you publish to. So should be much more streamlined than it has been in the past. If you've published an Xbox app, that was the world I came from and worked with, and I know that you know that it's a painful process.
How do we get access to the Xbox?
To the preview builds?
Yeah.
So those aren't on,
Not preview, the dev center.
to the dev center. So there's 2 different things. If you actually want to publish in the ADK world today, If you want to publish on the current Xbox that's still there, that's actually possible. We allow for self-publishing as well. It's a little more of a review process, but you can start by, I have cards here for the developer program that we run.
We have an Xbox with QR code on it.
So you have a dev kit?
Yeah, we don't know how to
So
actually sign on or anything like that.
Sure, so you just need the documentation that exists on ADN, the Application Developer Network, which is the portal that's tied to your Xbox development kit. And so I'll give you my card afterwards and I can point you towards the resources that you need, but there's basically a jumpstart place. So if you have the dev kit already, you've already signed away your life and signed our NDAs, and it's pretty easy for you to get up and running. But if there are others in the room who are interested in the development process now, pre-Windows 10, you're welcome to join the development network for Xbox. I can give you a card that'll sort of point you in that direction. If you're more interested in the Windows 10 timeline for it, then you can go ahead and sign up for the Windows 10 developer environment and just know that Xbox gets added to that family later this year.
Is that a preview on Windows.com?
I'm sorry?
Where is that? Sign up for the
So if you go to preview.windows.com, you'll be able to get the tools and the preview build of Windows 10, and there's more information there about getting into to the. It's really just everything is public and published at MSDN in terms of Windows 10 development. Because Xbox today is still a closed environment, it's its own secluded place, and that's why you have to sign up separately. But again, even that goes away towards the end of the year.
So realistically, what's the anticipated Xbox Windows 10
Later this year. There's updated information being given out today.
Trying to figure out if I should bother developing
Sure,
Windows 10 and wait, or
sure.
use a legacy, or just
Is it super important to your business you're on Xbox before the end of the year? If it is, then I would start with an ADK application today and then migrate to it. If it's not super important that you're up and running before the end of the year, then wait. That would be my guidance, to be honest. Did you have another question?
Yeah, just, sorry, you said Xbox specific.
No, that's okay. That's why we're here, and that's why it was in the title. He was right. Dan was totally right. You guys only care about the Xbox. That's okay. I'm all right with that.
So currently with the Xbox, the authentication is done via a SAML token that comes back from
Uh-huh. The JSON token on the Xbox One, but yes, same.
right. What happens to that in the Windows 10 build?
Mhm.
How is the Xbox going to do authentication?
So you could still certainly use what you already had up and running, but in Windows 10 it would have access to authentication formats that any other Windows platform has. So an MSA credential, or effectively any other secured authentication method that you have access to. It's just Windows 10 at that point. It's not something that's special or hidden. So it'll fall in line with virtually any other application I believe you're working on. Yes, sir. So the question was, is there any noticeable difference in performance between the languages? Not any that I've seen, but it would be down to individual user testing on specific types of content and types of data that you're pulling. That probably starts to really make the difference. I've seen more difference in things like how the back-end APIs to the catalogs are called that tend to make the bigger performance hit difference. If they're JSON, they tend to be pretty fast and responsive. If they're something else, they tend to be a little weaker and a little harder to load, and that's where you tend to see lags and hits in performance. But in terms of the front ends, nothing I've seen so far has been radically different to the visual eye. In load testing, I'm sure there's probably some difference. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Xbox One only has the ability to support one screen now. Is that going to change? Multi-screen?
I have not seen anything about it being a multi-screen device, so I can't I can't just absolutely say no, but nothing that I have seen has that in the roadmap today.
The Windows Phone, what manufacturers is that going to work in the Windows 10 phone apps? Is that Nokia or Samsung?
Anybody that creates Windows phones, so anybody that supports the Windows operating system. I mean, obviously you wouldn't be able to load it on an iPhone, but I mean, if it's somebody that's building a Windows phone, and I should say that I'm sure that there will be specific Windows 10 devices that they support, but the preview, when I say that there's a preview up at windows.com, there's also a phone preview that's up, and there's a whole list of currently supported Windows 8 and 8.1 phones that can be flashed to Windows 10. So I have a Nokia 635 that is my test device, and it's been running Windows 10 since, I think, January. And that list will continue to grow. So as you know, manufacturers choose to support it, you'll see that list grow as well.
How does this affect Skype? Skype on Xbox.
It's still there. I mean, there's Skype on Xbox today, but it's a special ADK build, and that will be replaced by just the normal Skype that you also run on your desktop and your phone. Any other questions? All right. Well, guys, thanks a lot. I'm sorry that I didn't get to actually open up Visual Studio and show off things, but like I said, I do encourage you to go check out the build videos and things that are there. And if you are interested in either Xbox development or development questions in general for the Windows platforms, please do come up and see me. We have, I think, plenty of time to chat. We've got about 15 more minutes of time before the next round of talks start. Thanks a lot.